All right, y'all, welcome back to Love Frequency, where we turn pain into love. We transmute the pain that we've been through into healing, love, and healing. So, this week, the 411 is basically about, I know I touched bases on performing and potential. So, I feel like this week is still kind of piggybacking on like potential, but in the aspect of performance in love. And the funny thing about it is, I've been literally coming across other channels that's been kind of speaking on performance. And what does that really mean? You're performing or doing something that's not really of your higher self and your true being, like what's truthful to you, in love, in relationships. So you're performing an act, whether that be to feel like a void or something, um, to kind of like heal, but it's not really being yourself. And what that means is, like, let's say you know that potentially you don't really want that project, that job, or that relationship, but you're in it, you're performing an act because you have some type of fear of people are going to judge you, or they may have some things to say. But this week is about, who gives a fuck? Like, who cares about what they say? If that's something that you feel like you're aligned with and something that you want to do that shit. You know what I mean? Who cares what people think? But it does become a problem if you feel like whatever you're doing or whatever you're performing in your spirit, it don't sit right. And I don't know, like I keep saying that for some reason this week, but I've literally been coming across many channels that have said that. And one channel particularly I came across on Instagram, and she mentioned, like, what is the highest vibration, whether that be love or truth? And she said it was truth. So with that being said, do you guys feel like you're living in your truth or your higher self, your higher being? If so, then that's what it is. But I think we've been experienced that a lot. The full moon just passed. A few months, it's almost the end of the year. Are you living in your truth? Because I feel like the truth is the hierarchy. Truth. And there's a lot of things under that, like love, um, spirituality, just whatever. Yeah, so that's kind of, you feel me? What I'm saying. But yeah. And I feel like truth can mean anything for anyone. Like it depends on the individual. What is truthful for you? What does that mean? So this week is more so about, are we living at our highest self? Are we really being honest with our intentions and the way that we're moving? And this is not to judge anyone, because you can do whatever you want to do. But the goal of it is, are you living in your truth, which is the highest vibration of love, the highest vibration, right? Are you being honest with yourself? And that kind of goes back to that potential, excuse me. um, Making sure that we're not performing to the point where we're overextending ourselves, doing more than that person is doing, not allowing that person to show up, not allowing that person to be themselves to the point where we're trying to change them for the better. Some people may think that, hey, you know what? I love this person so much. I want them to change. I want to try to like help them elevate, but they're not trying to elevate that, for themselves to the point where you're overexhausted, you're overextending yourself. You're not catching a vibe. You're not catching a wave. That's another thing. Potential will have you so confused out here that you're not realizing that if you take a step back, that person really isn't that into you. They're not really into that project, but you are, because you're so hopeful and so happy. Um, So I think this week is more so touching based on that, like to the point where you're living up to someone else's potential and you're not catching a vibe. You have to learn how to self-love yourself to the point where you recognize the signs. If they're not texting you, why would you overextend yourself and text them a lot? You're not catching that, hey, you know what? This person needs space. This person is overstimulated. They need time to breathe. You know what I mean? So with that being said, yeah, we love these people, but that doesn't mean like overextend to the potential to the point where you're doing the most work. You keep, texting them, they ain't text you back. You're doing the most work there, they are not. So I wanted to kind of piggyback on that. Hey, and sometimes like once we start really healing, we'll recognize that in that situation that we really were doing too much in that situation and not giving that person the opportunity to show up for who they are. And it's hard to really tell, like, hey, am I really into you? You wouldn't know that because you're doing too much. You're overextending, you're over texting, you're over, the first one to say, hey, I'll, pick the dates, whatever the case may be. So overperforming, you don't need to do that when somebody is really into you. Stop overperforming in situations and relationships. You don't need to do that. If somebody really fuck with you, they fuck with you for who you are, not for like what you're doing for them. Texting someone 1,000 times a day isn't going to get them to like you even more. Buying them gifts and all of that stuff isn't going to get them to like you even more. Going out of your way for certain things isn't going to make them like you even more. You know what I mean? So I think this week is more so piggybacking on like the potential and adding on to that, overextending yourself and overperforming. And you know what's another word for overperforming? Chasing. When someone say like, oh, well, you chasing or you doing this and that, there's nothing wrong, I personally think, with chasing, but it becomes a problem when you are doing, it's not an even balance in that dynamic. You're doing all the work. That goes back to potential. That goes back to overperforming. That's what that means. When you start chasing someone, you're doing more work than they're doing. And then when you take a step back, you be like, damn, they ain't do this, they ain't do that. And then you have to take accountability. Stop trying to tell your friends and family, like, oh, I did all of this stuff for them. I did that. So what? So what if you did this and that for them? Did they ask you to do that and this and that for them? Most of the times they didn't. You did it because it was some abandonment issues going on. You felt like whatever you did was probably going to make them want you even more. That shit don't work. Stop doing that. So this week, the message, the 411, is about overperforming. Sometimes take a chill pill. Sit back and relax and just see what that person's going to do. You know what I'm saying? Right, Boots? Right, Boots? Exactly. See what they going to do. Okay. That's part of performing. When you start performing for love to the point where you're not being yourself, you're overextending yourself, you're doing more than that person is doing, you're not catching their vibe that they need space because you're doing all the work. If somebody is really into you or into the energy, you don't really need to do that much. And some people feel like you need to overextend yourself, buy them more gifts, take them to certain restaurants that's fancy, spend all this money. You don't need to do that. I think you're overdoing it. And that's the purpose. This week, overperformance. When you're overperforming in a relationship, you're basically doing too much. And then you wonder why you're upset and you're mad. Why are you upset? Because you feel like you did more work. Did that person ask you to do all of that? You felt in your soul that you need to do all that. They didn't ask for that. In some cases, I'm not saying that they did or didn't, but I feel like in some cases people be overperforming, doing a lot of in that relationship or that project or that job, and then they get mad and say, "Oh, I did this and that. I did this and that. I helped this person with this and that." But did that person ask you to do that? That's the question. And if they didn't ask you to do that, you have to look within yourself and ask, why did I overperform in that situation? Abandonment issues, trust issues, feeling like you're going to lose that person in that relationship. No, that's when self-love comes into place. When you love yourself enough to recognize that, you know what, I can take a step back. I don't have to overextend myself. I did my job. I did my part. I gave them what they needed to give, right, Boots? Right? Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Okay, girl. Right, Boots? Okay. Ooh, okay. Hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, we get it. Yeah. Yep. So that's basically all I have for this week is you don't need to overperform for someone to genuinely like you. If they like you, they're gonna fuck with you no matter what you do. You don't have to like overextend yourself, overbuy gifts, over text them, overperform, see the potential in them and like see the advancement and say, you know what, I see this in you. You don't really need to do all of that. You could just genuinely be yourself. And to be honest with you, you would want somebody to fuck with you for who you are, not for who you're performing to be. Don't you think so? Why would you perform to be something? Then once the honeymoon fade, they like the before you versus the real you, right? So be yourself. If they like you, they're gonna like you regardless if you buy them flowers. And not saying that these things aren't important, like buying flowers, going on dates, trips and stuff like that. I think the moral of this story is more so deeper than that. Like, if you didn't have all of that, if you couldn't perform, who are you genuinely? And will this person genuinely like you and show up for you for who you really are, regardless if you bought them flowers, took them on fancy dates, and everything else? Stop overperforming. Take a step back. And going back to my prior video, when you're not seeing the potential in someone or see the potential in them, help them cultivate, but allow them to show up and say, let me see who you really are, so that we can see if we really align instead of jumping into something. And then once you jump into that situation, now you stuck for however long, few years, few months, who knows? So that's the importance of that. Like once you really take a step back and give people the opportunity to show you genuinely who they are without you having to see the potential, because a lot of people perform. A lot of people perform because they're afraid to show their real self, their true colors. They don't believe people are gonna love them for who they are. Once they, take Boots seriously. Boots, girl, stop. Boots, yeah. Hey. All right, so this week is kind of just piggybacking on it's okay to be a good person. It's okay to see the potential in people. It's not okay to like do more than what they're doing. to stress yourself out, especially like as an empath, taking on other people's emotions, feelings, to the point where you're overworking yourself. And now you got to take a step back to kind of, unwind and regroup. A lot of that can be avoided if you would just say, you know what, I see this person for who they are. That is not my emotions. That is not my energy. Let me take a step back and allow them to be who they are and not try to change them and try to interfere with their karma. That's another thing. Stop trying to interfere with people's karma. We love people. We want to help them. It's okay to cultivate. It's okay to help them elevate, but it's not okay to jump in and do too much work to the point where you're doing more work than that person is doing. So piggybacking on that potential, hey Boots. And now this week, as far as not seeing the potential, well, seeing the potential in them, but also cultivating them to the point where, and as people piggybacking on potential, it's not okay to downgrade yourself. I don't like to use that word, but like overextend yourself to the point where you're not living in your truth. You're not seeing who this person genuinely is. You're not seeing how they are showing up for you. Now you are stressed out. They are not stressed out because you're taking on all the work. You're taking on their particular energy and you are overperforming. So there's a difference between potential than overperforming. You saw the potential, that's number one. That led you to overperform in that relationship. That's number two. So overperforming, trying to make the relationship work, overextending text messages, overextending yourself and your energy. It's okay to protect yourself. And a lot of people, I don't know why, but they're afraid to hurt people. Don't be a bad guy. Don't be that person, but it's okay to grasp your villain era. I'm not saying a negative villain era. I'm saying it's okay to be that villain. In this lifetime, you know what? People are going to hurt. Their feelings are going to be hurt. They're going to be sad, but you got to think about it. How does that affect you in this lifetime? Long as you know that you're living your truth, you're being yourself, people going to be upset. That's on them. Now, I'm not saying be the bad guy. That's not what I'm saying. But that's on them, how they interpret their feelings and emotions. As long as you're being truthful to that person. You know what I'm saying? You're living your higher self. You're living your being. You're being honest with them. You're saying, you know what? This doesn't align with who I need to be. Align with my higher self. I see the potential in you, but I'm not going to do all the work for you. There's a difference in that. And I'm also not going to overextend myself or overperform to the point where I'm doing more than you are doing. Y'all have to Google that word, overperforming. That's been coming up a lot this week for some reason. So I have 3 cards that I pulled. And of course, I always pull 2 offline. But y'all got to start feeling people vibe. You know what I mean? Because people tell you how they feel about you in so many ways. It's just a lot of people don't really pay attention to the red flags. Some people are so emotional to the point where they may not verbally can tell you how they feel, but their actions may. They may pull back. They may go silent. They may go quiet. You have to pick up on that. You know what I mean? Like stop. I'm not saying clingy is bad. I love clingy. Let your partner know, like, look, I love you. I love I love your skin. I want to be in your body. But don't be all up in their skin, in their essence. If you feel the vibe, like they really trying to tell you, like, look, babe, I need some space. I need some me time. Some of y'all don't be picking up on that energy. When people start being mean to you, irritable, whatever the case may be, those are signs that they may not verbally want to tell you, like, look, you get on my fucking nerve. You're bothering me. You're irritating me. And you're still doing more. You're overperforming. That's what overperformance means. Learn to take a step back and chill sometimes. Say, you know what, my baby may be this. Or communication. Sometimes communicating with them, like, how do you like to be loved when you are going through your moods? because we may not know, sometimes your partner may not know. They're like, look, I like for you to pull back and give me space for 2 days so I can figure out my mental, and then I'm going to get back with you in a few days. That's called communication versus just ignoring them for 2 days. Then your partner who may have anxiety, like, oh, that person may not fuck with me. Communication is key in relationships. And some of y'all need to work on that shit for real. Work on that shit. Like, look, this is my personality. This is how I am. I need 2 to 3 days to myself. But the balance of that is saying, I know my partner and they need 2 or 3 days. So you got to have both. Like, you got to be able to communicate it. And then you also got to be able to feel that energy and say, you know what, let me give them 2 days. And then also accepting them verbally telling you, babe, let me give you 2 days because I need that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to pull these cards and we're going to get into it. Yes. For the week, and I put them in order, and I realized last week that you guys couldn't see it because of how the camera was, but the first one is thinker. I put this in order. The other one is not for you, and then the last one is take a time for like a nap, rest. So the first one, what it represents, is thinker. Someone may be thinking about something, a decision, before making that decision. It's okay to do that. Take time for yourself. Take time to meditate on it before, jumping into the situation. Then with that being said, of course, the right one, if you do make that decision, maybe it's not something that may be aligned for you right now. And then once you make that decision, sometimes it's okay to rest in that retreat, meditate, and just, release that energy. So we got 3 cards. Someone is thinking on something. Someone is thinking on the decision that they're going to make or want to make. And they have to retreat in order to do that. Once they retreat and think about it, they may realize that maybe that situation isn't aligned with them. It's not for them. And it's okay to rest. So those are the 3 cards for today. But I do want to kind of read it from the book because I feel like the book may give more insight into what I really wanted to read this. But as far as like the oracle card, as far as the thinker one, love is not logical, but when you choose a partner, it is good to have things in common other than like someone that's lusting or desiring after you. And this is a time to kind of weigh your pro and con of that relationship. So if there is enough common ground, go for it. But if not, there are other fish in the sea. So that's kind of where it says think on it. Someone is thinking on a decision. See if you have that common ground, that commonality, before making that decision, you're thinking on it before doing so. But don't force it. And should others tell you who they are, take them at their word. That's what the book says. And now it's not the time to kind of indulge in fantasy. So there's that illusion. Don't be delusional. Don't have that overperforming and, potential. That's what that's basically referring to. So no matter what, in this case, the facts are the facts. So they are who they are. You're thinking on it. You're weighing and pro and con on a situation. And listen, this is exactly what it says here. I didn't make that shit up. So that's the thinker card. And the one that says not for you, trying to make this real simple for y'all. I'm not trying to like rush. And sorry that I gotta go through the book. It's just I tell you one, but I want to go with the book says. The other message for not for you. Some relationships carry some relationships carry like a seed of failure in them. So it's obvious from the beginning, but the red flags escape your observation or you refuse to acknowledge it. That potential. Once again, it's that potential that you're trying to, force upon them. When a relationship is not meant to be, it is not possible to make it be. So stop trying to force it. And it's all about rejection. Rejection is protection. So that's basically what the not for you one is for. So I worded it in my words before reading it from the actual book. And then that rest in the last one. And I put it in order. So when it comes to matters of the heart, make plans for right now. If your partner, it's a good time to kind of like take that moment with your partner, relax, chill, meditate, rest. But if you're not involved with someone, this is going to be a moment in time of like isolation, but do not force anything right now. So don't try. Yes, so just to kind of like, put those cards in order. It's funny how when I pull the cards, they definitely represent what I talk about at first, that potential, that performance. Somebody's overperforming right now, whatever that may be. You are analyzing, you are thinking about what is your next move, what should I do, should I rate my pro and con? That's what the card is saying. Once you do that, you may realize it's not for you, at least not right now. Then once that probably occurred, it's time for you to rest and retreat, take a nap, because that takes a lot of energy in someone to really think on something, rate a pro and con, figure out if this situation is aligning right for me, and then after all of that, you need to rest, regroup, and retreat on it. So those are the three cards for this week, and they align with what we were talking about, right? Performance. Stop performing. What's gonna be is gonna be. And because you overperforming, somebody thinking real hard. That's what this card represents, the thinker card. Somebody thinking on something, trying to weigh that pro and con, baby. So that's what it is.